Morning and welcome to Friday, May 19th call. We're going to talk today about establishing what is referred to in my textbooks as mystical self-direction. I love that. Establishing, I know, right? It's like, that's a sexy title. Establishing mystical self-direction. And starts out with a quote actually from the Bible, which is 2,000 years ago, Christ advised his disciples, give not thought what you will say before you are brought before the judges. For verily I say unto you, at that same moment, the words shall be on your lips. And it talks about how Christ pointed out a great mystical truth as lessons for the disciples, which is when turned into the higher universal or God mind, we are intuitively guided to rely on that self-direction from a higher source. Rather than trying to analyze every possible course of action, as in our modern society where we are taught to be analytical. And so, of course, our higher mind exists within that can answer all things. And so, for a lot of our conditioning, we have been guided and told how important it is to reason, right? To logic. What's the reasoning for this? When you're making a decision, what were you taught to do? Like my mom and dad taught me, when you have confusion, you make a pros and cons list, right? So what are all the reasons you should do something, and what are all the reasons why you shouldn't do something? And then you make the decision from there. And then, of course, if a decision's made that the pro list is long or the con list is longer, then of course that would be a bad decision. If the pro list was longer and you made that's a good decision. And also then there's the conditioning and the programming of there's a good decision and there's a bad decision, which depending on your conditioning could mean you're a good girl or you're a bad girl. And then what happens to good girls are rewarded and bad girls are punished. And you can like literally follow this rabbit hole or crumbs down the spiral of the conditioning simply based on making a decision, right? Or you might have had people judge you, whether harshly or not, if you're a thinker, and then, oh my goodness, if you're an overthinker, then, right, how awful is that? Because your confusion comes because you're overthinking. And I would say that our confusion doesn't come for overthinking, but perhaps maybe overanalyzing. And if we're overanalyzing, it's the possibility, it's never a for sure thing. The possibility is that we're solely relying on our reasoning, our logic, our intellect, right? Our conscious thoughts. And we're not creating the harmony or the balance between the intellect, so that's the conscious part of ourselves, and the emotional side, the unconscious part of ourselves, where our beliefs reside, our emotions reside there. And so it really is having that fine balance. We can't figure things out. So we can go back to that word. I just can't figure things out. Well, of course, we can't figure things out because we're using our logical mind, our intellect, to figure things out. So we want to be able to tap into the combination of the yes, the logical mind, and of course, or the conscious mind, logical mind, and the unconscious or subconscious self parts of ourselves, the connection to our God mind, connection to universal spirit. And when we start tapping into the universal spirit, we might get ideas or answers that we're surprised at, and that can go as far as what should we price a program. So if you're a coach or a consultant, or right, what should you be pricing your content at, your services at? There's times that I've done it and I've been guided to charge more than I thought people would pay, right? More than what other coaches. And there's times where I'm like, I would think, yeah, this is the value of this is like, $10 trillion. and I've got this, charge $10. I'm like, what? And so that's the beauty and the benefit of utilizing our unconscious or our intuition, I would say, our God mind, right? So tapping into this higher source to guide us when we're going into a conversation that we don't know. I don't know about any of you, but I have quite a bit of inner dialogue. And so I used to go in and practice in my head what I would say, right? When I would go into a conversation, and then I would get into the conversation and have confidence that this is the way, the direction it was going to go. And I'd start the conversation, and then I would forget everything. I would be like a complete blank, as if I had not practiced. But now I can look back and go, oh, that was unconsciously tapping into my divine self, and my divine self knew what to say. The personality Ranchelle, she would have taken the conversation in a different direction, right? The spirit, the connecting to higher self, she goes in a much different direction. Not always, but enough that I would be comfortable in saying that. So as we're tapping into our God source, it's even when people say to me, oh, you're doing a presentation, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I have no idea. I have 3 talking points, right? I always have 3 talking points, and I often don't know what I'm going to talk about. And that can work for some people. That might not work for other people. So that's not here's your goal. Don't plan, or don't think about things beforehand. But for me, what I have found is that if I have a direction, an intention that's been guided by source energy, then the words are given to me, right? The formatting is given to me. And so again, that's just, I'm sharing my experience. That might not be the experience that you have, nor that you want. The most important piece of that is tapping into universal mind, tapping into that God source energy. So your personality, your ego, your id, your I isn't making the decision. Should I do this or should I do that? So I believe that our confusion comes from because we're trying to utilize our intellect to answer a question, to make a decision. What we want to use our intellect for is to ask intelligent questions of our God source mind to get to the clarity. So the intellect is important, right? We're not acorns. We can reason, but we want to use our intellect not to make a decision, but to ask the questions so that God source energy can provide us with the answers. We can also use our intellect to make a new decision. So a belief is just a decision with enough evidence. So we can use actually both divine source energy and our intellect to decide what our new belief should be, right? And then make that decision. And then we use our intellect to provide the evidence of how that new decision can be supportive. So I think that's where we use our intellect. We can use our intellect to govern, that's the word I'm being given, govern our emotions, right? So, right, because we can make note of, oh, isn't that, so it'd be like for Bradshaw, oh, isn't that interesting? I'm about to completely lose my shit, right? I'm taking this really personal. So I can reason my way through my emotion, not suppress or repress my emotion, but use my intellect to be a guide for me so that I can pause. Then I can use my intellect to ask universal mind, ask my higher power to help me, to assist me. So sometimes that looks like, okay, I'm really taking this personal, and I'm in awareness, and I'm taking this personal. That's my intellect. And then I will ask God, okay, I really need you to help me cool my jets, right? And then I might get do this breath work, or, oh, remember the time when, or, oh, that's when inspired action comes. So I believe the difference, it's my personal point of view, is the difference between inspired action, that's God driven, and taking action is my ego. And so if I take inspired action, I can have the faith that wherever I'm going, right? So whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm going, the reason will come about the opportunities. Even if it looks like an obstacle, everything's in place for a reason. I can take an action based out of the ego or id or I. It's not a mistake, meaning even if the action I took was from ego, and that action I took was from ego led me to an obstacle or challenge, I believe, so my faith tells me that I was meant to experience that. That my ego was meant to take over, and I was meant to experience that, because my belief is everything happens for me and nothing happens to me. So if I'm meant to have this experience, then that means my ego will take over. So this releases us from we did something right or we did something wrong, that we're a good girl or a bad girl, right? Or that we don't know what we're doing, or my favorite belief that I used to have, which is there must be something horribly wrong with me, right? So and so every time I took action from ego, it would be evidence of that, right? Oh, that's this because you're all fucked up, that's why you did that, right? So letting go of that was like, oh, that's just another experience I can chalk up as an experience, right? And then go back, okay, what do I need to do differently? Who do I need to be? What actions do I need to take? So then I use my intellect, bring it back into my center, and then ask those questions to lead me down the path of where I'm meant to. And when I say where I'm meant to, I don't mean that in terms of judgment, but meant to in terms of discernment, right? Where I'm meant to go. We're meant to live the life that we desire. We're meant to desire more. We're meant for more. We're meant to be more, have more, and do more, right? And so our intellect, although we have lots of praise for it, is the thing that can really anchor us into our past. So we need to be in awareness. Need again in terms of discernment, right? We need to be in awareness of, when am I using my intellect as an anchor to my past, and when am I using it for the power of reason, or to create the proof or the evidence of the life that I meant? Because it can be both ways. Universal law of polarity. Everything is created as a whole. So including us, we have a shadow self, we have a light self, right? We have our ego, we have connection to the divine source energy. It's everything is created as a whole, right? So when we as we move into this new way of being, the first key is to make the decision that a person, you must absolutely want to receive direction from a higher source. You must make the decision that you want direction first. That'd be the first step. For me, when I made that decision, as I was receiving, so whether I call them downloads or information or data or thoughts, I felt like I was just making shit up. And so I would say, if you ever feel like you're just making shit up, you are in touch with your higher source. Because it's like, I have no idea. Did I just say that? Did I just feel that? Did I just, right? So inspired action, or the thoughts that come from divine, in my experience, feel like I'm just making shit up, right? And for practicing, you can even say think of things like, you're looking for direction, you can ask for a symbol, right? And then you can, so the game you can play, for me, this is how I started. I was like, give me a symbol, and then I would go, okay, that symbol means, and then I would just randomly create and make up stuff, right? So the butterfly means blah 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 blah, and some of it would be like standard freedom and liberation, and that transformation. But you can constantly ask your divine source energy to help you with your logical mind step it, right? So give me a symbol first, and then give me thoughts to go with that symbol. So you can do it that way, right? So there's the different clairs, right? There's clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, there's 5. I always forget the other 2. Clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. If anyone else remembers them, you can put them in the chat. But we have 5 clairs, they're called, that we can have access to. Clair knowing, I think, is another one where you just know stuff and you can't explain why. So this is what we're talking about, is accessing your clairs. And we all have access to all of the clairs, but some of them might be more because we've used them more, or we're just more comfortable with them. So once you establish that you want to be connected to divine source energy and you want to utilize that part of yourself to direct you, to provide you with words, to provide you with actions, to provide you with thoughts, and you make the decision that you want to receive it. It also means being in awareness of the illusions that can take over one's life as a result of being guided by personal egotism. What does that mean? It means, would you be willing to accept that everything that we see before us is an illusion? That it's really not real or the truth. So if you've ever seen The Matrix, it's, the possibility of it's something like The Matrix, where everything is just a programming, it's the conditioning, it's all made up. So if we're willing to accept that part of ourselves where everything is just an illusion, the other thing around that is we don't take things as personal. So things can happen, then we can go with everything happens for us and nothing happens to us. Good morning, darling. Yeah. And then what that will help us then with, it's just an illusion, which can help you then where everything that we're giving meaning to feels real because we're giving meaning to it, right? What happens, right? And we can use it so for me, I use this to keep myself have peace and serenity. It keeps me really, really grounded. I was on a call earlier and this woman was saying she needed something. And I said, I understand that, but it's not going to be, it might not be given at the time that you want. And she was quite adamant that I do this thing. And so I'm being respectful. I understand that. And then she went into a whole reason why it needed to be done and the consequences. And I said, I understand. And her response is, I don't think you understand because you're not obviously rattled, kind of thing. And I said, I very rarely get rattled, right? And I understand what you're saying, that there's consequences. And for her, those consequences, the meaning that she gave those consequences was so like the world is going to end. And for me, it's like, I understand the consequences of my actions and okay, cool. Right. So the meaning I gave it was, I can understand, but I don't have to buy into someone's energy of that. So it's kind of like their emergency doesn't make it my emergency. Their drama doesn't have to make it my drama. I can hold space for somebody, but I don't have to be drawn into the drama. I can allow people to have their own reality, which is just an illusion. Right? It's the allowance of having people have their own experience and not going into rescue, because one of the roles that I used to play was I'll go and rescue. Look how important I am. I can go and rescue, dun, 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 like a hero. And then of course, then that shows how valuable I am. So that was tied to my own worthiness and own value challenges that I had. So the rescuer was created for me in my young life, right? So that I could prove the value, right? My worthiness to my tribe, so that I could prove that I had value and worthiness in the tribe. So we'll bring familial things, lineal things, into this present day illusion. But so we can, if we can look at everything as an illusion, the opportunity that we have is we don't have to take ourselves so seriously, right? And that can allow. So for me, peace and serenity were my biggest intentions. I wanted to feel peace. I wanted to be peace. right? I wanted to feel love. I wanted to be love. And in order for that to happen, I needed to surrender, right? Not death of the ego. Thank you so much, Karen. um, not death of the ego, because I believe we need our ego, but to have the balance of the ego and to be in awareness with the ego, right? So when we approach the establishment of what we're calling today mystical self-direction, which is a sexy name, in this spirit, there's techniques or methods that we can use. So here's the techniques. Oh, what time is it? Okay, we'll go through a few of these then today. So here's some practical steps for us to start to tap into this mystical self-direction. So, and when you hear them, it's not going to be like, oh my God, I've never heard this, but it'll be more of, okay, that's a different way, maybe different words, or you'll hear what you're meant to hear today, is what I'm being told. So throughout the day, maintain an easygoing mental attitude. Intuitive self-direction comes forth more readily when you are in a peaceful state than when you're upset. So, right. So if you're trying to make a decision when you're upset, stop. You can't make a decision based from fear. Well, you can. Let me rephrase that. You can make a decision from fear, and it will lead to an outcome that's tied to and attached to worry, doubt, or fear, which normally isn't the outcome that you will be connected to the intention that you desire. That was a long explanation, right? So that's the first thing. So if you are upset, right, and you tapping into your intuition, you're going to need to use a tool: breath work, meditation, movement, are three of the fastest things to change your state, so you can calm yourself down, so you can then get in touch with your God mind, with your higher power, right? This mystical self-direction. The second thing you can do is just be in awareness when your personal ego is trying to influence your higher mind. So I know when my personal ego is trying to influence my higher mind, two things happen to me. First of all, I start to get a headache. By the end of the day, my head hurts. I actually have an aching head because I'm trying to use my brain pan and I'm going to use the words for me, for Ranchelle, is I'm trying to use my brain to manipulate. So I look at it as a manipulation. That's just worked really well for me. The second thing is I don't feel at peace. I'm uncomfortable. I have discomfort. I don't feel empowered. I'm in my primal state. I'm using my fear-based, I'm using my amygdala, which is placed back here in your brain. It's worry, doubt, and fear. So I know that ego is trying to, although it thinks it's trying to keep me safe, it's really not, right? So there's that piece. Dedicate the beginning of the day to your higher mind and conclude your day in the same way. So part of, I think, the power of what we do here is you surrendering your ego, right? So you're hearing with your intellect, and then you're processing with your intellect. Your actions, right, will come from divine. That's the opportunity of working here. As you enter into sleep at night, you can ask your higher mind to influence your subconscious mind. So a lot of you may be doing that just by default, but you can ask your guides, and that everyone that would be different. It might be guides for you, it might be your higher power, God, right? Spirit, Allah, Buddha. Again, you all know my shtick. Pick what you want. But you can ask your guides to guide you. Now, in my experience, I've also had to ask my guides to be quiet at night, because I'm so open at night to guidance that I won't necessarily have a great REM sleep. And so at different times of the month, for me, it's based on my moon cycle, on the moon cycle. So I will say, okay, I appreciate this, and I need you to just let me be. I need 3 nights of no thoughts and no guidance, so I can have 3 nights of REM sleep, which will feel different. So your guides can come, but you can also ask your guides, hey, let's just take a break for a moment, right? Each day, place all of your questions of life as they arise in the hands of your higher mind. So every time you say, I don't know, this is true, you don't know, right? So I don't know the answer to this, so I'm turning this over to to my higher power. I don't know what to do. I'm turning this over to my higher power. I don't know what's a priority. I'm going to turn this over to my higher power. I don't know, when Darcy, that was my former husband, I split up. Um, I didn't know if I should stay or if I should go, and so I, turned the decision over to my higher power. There's a huge part of me that wanted to stay and work things out. And that was based in fear, right? Totally based in fear. There is a sense of knowing when the direction has come from your higher mind. But if you find you're overanalyzing a course or direction, it's unlikely that your thoughts have come from your higher mind. So if you're overanalyzing it, it's more than likely your ego. Right? Because the higher power is just like this, oh yeah, that makes sense. I call it my aha moments. Oh, right. If so, it kind of feels like for me, ooh, ah, oh, like those are the sounds that I make. So that also is next. Affirm inner higher self directions several times during your day. So basically, use your affirmations. Use your affirmations, right? Affirm inner higher self direction. If you wish your higher mind to lead you, you must stay open to it, right? So use affirmations to stay open to it, or just remind yourself, right? And I find myself doing this when I have a heavy, task oriented day. I need to remind myself to stay connected to my higher power. So my higher power can guide me. This is my favorite. Learn to separate intuitive response from emotional response. Learn to separate intuitive response from emotional response. Emotional response is largely the influence of your personal ego or the influence of other people's thinking. If you're having an emotional response, an emotional reaction, right, the question you can ask yourself, first and foremost, that I ask is this mine? So there's many layers of this for me. Is this mine? Meaning, am I feeling the collective, right, or somebody I'm close to? So that's the first question I ask. And then if it comes back and it says it's mine, then I ask, is this programming? Is this conditioning? Is this a value or a belief that was passed on from my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, right? And is this valuable to me to have this value or belief? And then if it isn't, then I can make a new decision. So it can be something like, and I'll use this as an example of early on in my relationship with Rob. Rob is very much like Peter Pan, very playful energy, right? There's a childlike energy that he has about him, very curious, teasing, right? He's very, like, we've seen Peter Pan tease Wendy, right? In the original Peter Pan, he's very much like that. And he can be a little cocky, right? And he is extremely intelligent. So when he speaks of something, he speaks as if he knows it, like it's fact. And I observed him pissing people off because he had this teasing energy, this playful energy, which could irritate people. And then this other side of him, which when he spoke, it was fact. It was like, this is the law. And growing up, my mom and dad's belief or value is that if you tease somebody, it's because you don't have confidence. And if you tease someone, it's bullying. And if you tease, so there's all this meaning behind teasing. So in my family, we weren't allowed to tease. right? It was very stoic, right? There can be, and there's truth to that, right? My mom and dad experienced that in their lifetime, that if someone was teasing, they were bullying them, right? But there is this place of teasing that possibly might be allowed. Now, regardless of, so when I came into this relationship, I was very offended by his cockiness and very offended. I was offended by his teasing. And then I started to as I was doing this work, I started to see that I gave meaning to what the teasing meant, that it meant something about him and that it meant something about me. And that being cocky or playful, which is two different spectrum, like, right? It's the polarity, also has a meaning. So I found myself either going into a defensive position, meaning I either defended his behavior or I was defensive with him because I gave it meaning. And I thought, what if I didn't give it any meaning? What if my mom and dad were wrong? What if teasing wasn't related to bullying? What if teasing was playful? And what if it felt like I was taking it personal because it was scratching a core wound or core fear that I might have that he probably has no clue that I have? And so what if I just accepted the playfulness as playfulness? Now, this is really different and contrary to modern day psychology, right? Where people like create your boundary, do this, do that, which I believe boundaries are for us. But I also believe that people have a difficult time respecting a boundary because it's not their fucking boundary. It's like Les Nessman has his lines, right? Like, don't cross the line. And people are like, I don't understand. Look, I can cross the line. Look at me cross the line. And so, but the reason why we have a boundary should be, in my personal point of view, for ourselves, for self-respect, self-esteem, self-love. And the fact that someone crosses the boundary doesn't have to have any meaning at all. It's like the sky is blue. Do you have a personal attachment? Do you get an emotional response to that? The sky is blue. What if I said to you, the sky is purple? Would you accept that? Or would you feel like you needed to prove the point that no, the sky is blue, and bring all the data forward to show me that I was wrong and you were right and the sky is blue? Or could you just let me believe my own illusion, because everything's an illusion anyhow, that the sky is purple or pink or orange? And so our ego tells us, well, no, they need to know that that's not purple. That's why. Why do you give a shit? Why do you give a shit if I think the sky is orange? Right? That's our conditioning. Right? Why do you care that someone crossed a boundary? Because you've been conditioned. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just giving you a different point of view. You've been conditioned that if someone crosses the boundary that you set, that means that they don't respect you. That's the meaning that you give it. But what if you didn't give it any meaning? What if the meaning you gave it was they have no clue not how to cross a boundary? They don't know. And what if they weren't doing it intentionally? What if they really couldn't not cross a boundary? Right? What if that was actually the truth? Right? Not that they didn't care about us or didn't love us or didn't respect us, or what if none of that was true? What if all of it was just a bullshit story that was made up so that we could feel right or not be wrong? It changes everything, because people can behave what they want, the way they want to behave. And you can make a decision to stay in the relationship or not. I mean, you can leave the relationship, right? But you don't have to, like, then we feel like we need to justify why you left the relationship. I left the relationship. Why? Because it was time. Like, no explanation required. Right? No explanation required. But we feel we're conditioned to answer the question. Right? We're conditioned to answer the question. So again, it's a different way to look at it. And when I talked about before, people are like, what about abusive relationships? And what about this? There's always exceptions to the rule, right? And I've been in an abusive relationship. Like I had a boyfriend who threatened to kill my parents if I left, and I stayed for 6 months. I stayed in prison for 6 months. I was so afraid that he would kill my mom and dad, right? And then one day I woke up and went, okay, so how would he actually do that? Like, does he have the resources to do that? So here's where I used my intellect. Does he have the resources to do that? No, right? We're living in a basement suite, right? He doesn't have the resources, right? Does he have the mindset? Yes. Was he crazy enough? Yes. Unstable, right? Enough? Yes. Yeah. Would he have and the verbiage was hard at that time, but what I expressed at that time, would he have the courage, like the balls to do it? And that's when divine source energy kicked in. It's like, no, Ranchelle, he would not, because he's so afraid. He's so afraid. He's not a sociopath or a psychopath. He's an abuser. And that thought came from divine. Right. So I started to access my intellect, right? Started to let go of the worry, start letting go of the doubt. And then that's when divine source energy said, he's not a sociopath. He's not a psychopath. He's an abuser. Right. And that's when I was guided to take steps in order to get out of it. So I'm not talking about something abusive in that sense, but in general, when we're in relationship with people. So what meaning are we giving it? When we can tap into our divine source energy, we show up differently, right? Meaning it's the allowance, and that's a tough word, but I'll kind of end it with that. It's the allowance of allowing, oh, that poor English, people to show up however they need to in your life. Because remember, you created everything. I created, his name was Randy. I created Randy to be abusive in my relationship. Not my fault, my creation and my manifestation. And 5 years ago, he reached out to me on Facebook. Hey, it's been a while since we've talked. I hope you're good. I was like, fuck, dude. Right. And he, as if nothing happened. I was like, he's like, I really miss you. And I'm like, what? Like, I created that. I created this crazy person. So this abuser, he's not crazy, abuser, right? To reach out to me and try to friend me on Facebook because he missed me. I really wish we could have worked things out. So I messaged him back. Yeah, you probably shouldn't have threatened to kill my parents. Yeah, I was having a bad time. Yeah, okay. that was his, I was just having a bad day. Yeah, for 6 months. Okay. But that's like, I can totally laugh at the situation now because I'm in awareness of the creation of it. Right? The creation of it. So it's like, you can't make this shit up. Okay. So we have this intention. We can separate intuition from emotion. We can make these decisions with our conscious thoughts, right? We can be in awareness of our values and beliefs. And we can turn over our life, the direction of our life, to our higher power, to our guides. Right? And then each step just keep on turning, and then we get the next step, and then we get the next step. Because remember, I'll end with this. Remember, you will not get the entire plan right away. Right? You won't get you might get the, let me rephrase that. I'm being asked to rephrase that. You might get the outline, but not all the steps right away. But you might get the outline. And that's attached to your vision, right? So this is why goal setting and setting intentions or having a vision are so important. That it is key to your, I'm going to use a loosely termed success. Your imagination, your surrender is the word that they're getting. Your surrender into imagining and visualizing is key to living the life that you dream about. if you allow yourself to dream. So if you're feeling stuck, all right, part of, I guess they have one more message. If you're feeling stuck, is it because you're not allowing yourself to imagine? Because your intellect, right, is of your past, it keeps on, coming in. When I had the hint to create $1 million company, um, the first thing that came to me was like, yeah, but like last time you did that, that was just a shit show, right? And then I was like, yeah, right. And then I went, yeah, out loud, yeah, but I am not that woman. I am not that woman, right? I'm so different than I was in the 2000s. Right? So different, right? So I could not create the same thing. There's no way. There's no way because I'm completely different. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. So in Canada here, it's the long weekend. I just want to let all my Canadians know I will still be, right, we'll still be doing the call this weekend. So if you can come, fantastic. And if not, then I'll see you next time that you join me. Love you all very much. And we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.